This is one that was given to me by the spirits here. Hi soul friends, welcome back to Crossing the Veil. This is episode 1, Entering the Portal. I originally intended to publish this episode on my birthday on June 8th, and I'll talk more about this later probably, but I wanted to start off by again apologizing for the delay. My grandmother passed away on June 4th, right after I finished my first episode, or episode 0, and on my birthday we had like the visitation at the funeral home, and then her funeral was the next day. And during the process of recording and editing the first episode, I started getting some pain in my back, and I realized that I was forming a kidney stone. And I've been going through the process of just kind of resting and hydrating and waiting on it to pass. So I took a break for a couple of weeks from working after the funeral and after the last episode. And I decided to move the episode to summer solstice, which is June 20th or June 21st, depending on where you are in the world. Where I am, it's June 20th, and I hope that I get this finished and put up today. If not, it'll come out in the next day or two. But I'm trying to honor the summer solstice. And later, whenever I was looking to see exactly which day the solstice was, I realized it was the 20th in my area, or in my time zone. And then I remembered that's my grandmother's anniversary with my grandfather, and so it just felt right that it got moved. And I have a bunch of stories that I recorded. I'm going to try to weave everything together with the 2 different songs that are featured in this episode. Whenever I kind of get lost and lose my train of thought, I'll put a little bit of music for transition. And I'm kind of using these sound transitions as markers at like the end of a chapter, or like this is a collection of short stories, but they're all kind of tied together in a way. If you follow everything, there are some threads or some stories that may not come to a conclusion in this episode. There is a piece that ties to the last episode that I was going to use, that I'm saving for a future episode in the fall, because it's more appropriate when I get to the next 2 songs that I released after these first 2. And I'll tell you more about that stuff later. But I just want to thank you for being here. Thank you for coming back. Let's listen to a little bit of the music. And then I'll start with one of the first stories that I recorded, and try to weave everything together. Whenever I get lost, or as I listen back in this editing, I may come in with some reflection sections or channeled messages where I listen to it now. I may understand more of what I was trying to say that I couldn't quite grasp at the time when I was channeling. And the process may be a little bit hard to follow at first if you're new to listening to me, but hopefully the more I do this, the better everything will start to flow. And hopefully the more you listen to my episodes, the more that you can start to appreciate all of the different connections in different ways, and take that way of seeing all of the different connections in different roundabout ways in your own life, and start finding more meaning in your own experiences. Or that's my hope for you from listening to the stories I have to share, is that it helps you start to find the threads that connect everything in your life. So without further ado, let's get started. And again, I'm Amanda, or Gemini Witch 83. Shameless plug, go listen to my sounds. The ones featured in this episode are messages from Spirit and Crossing the Veil, and they are available on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, and a whole bunch of other places if those aren't your streaming preferences. If you don't stream and you want to purchase the song to support me, or a song or any of my tracks, you can download, purchase on iTunes or Amazon Music. I'm not sure if they're available for purchase anywhere else, but that's not important. I'm sitting here where I recorded Messages from Spirit, one of the places where whenever I first had my throat chakra singing bowl and I was recording it outside with intention, infusing magic and my intention into the sound. And I had found a piece of wood that day that was from like a tree root or a tree limb or something, but it had been placed right at the foot of my chair where my chair was sitting. And I knew I was supposed to use that to play my singing bowl on my next recording, and I did, and that's where I recorded Messages from Spirit, and I was sitting right here when I recorded it. And so it felt like I was supposed to come in and record a little story about that for this next episode. The spirits may use this sound to send you a message. I was whenever I started getting my singing bowls and started recording channeled sounds with them, I was starting to realize the use of energy and intention, and putting your intention and your magic into it, your own energy into it, is what creates or co-creates with spirit the sounds that come out, or the painting that comes out. Or I was opening more to intuition and intuitively creating sounds and art. And that's when the spirits, the elemental spirits here, gave me a piece of wood to use to record a throat chakra sound with, like finding your voice or learning to tune in to the energy so that you can co-create with spirit. And the intention of the song is kind of that, so you can sit down and meditate and learn to tune your energy into the energy around you so that you can use that energy to make something out of it. I don't know. Hold on, I'm losing the channel. I hate that. I get so far and then I lose the channel. Okay, the intention of this sound is just for you to listen and meditate and learn how to tune into the energies around you to get the messages that are trying to come through from your spirit team to help you in whatever way you're seeking. Like, if you're asking for your spirit guides to help you create a new painting, what colors pop into your mind whenever you just sit down and say, what would you like me to paint? Like, what pops in your mind? Go with that. It doesn't have to be I don't know. I'm losing it. This is first one that was given to me by the spirits here. At the time when I started getting singing bowls and started recording intentional sounds, I was learning that I already knew how to infuse magic and intentions into my work. And I was learning that I already knew how to tap into energy and co-create with spirit, whether it be sound or art or something else. The sounds just helped me open to my own belief in myself that I was a channel, that I was psychic, and that I was a medium, and that I was really connecting with spirits in my meditations and asking them to come through in some art and some sounds. And I started learning that part of my process is recording something and listening back to it and then understanding it more deeply, because I channel in the moment as I'm recording, and then as I listen to it, it's been a little bit of time, and so then I come back and I have a new layer of understanding. And that's whenever I started editing in smaller pieces, and where I started sharing more energy readings with some of my art clips and some of my sound clips, and I started making sounds so that I could have my own sounds in my music, so that I wouldn't get copyright things or demonetization things anymore. And so by doing that, I was like, well, why don't I just copyright those myself? And I was in the mind frame wondering what my first song was going to be. But then when I found that piece of wood by my chair, and I knew I had to play it, and I had already played one, or somewhere close to that time frame, I played one called Finding Your Voice. I think I put on videos, YouTube and stuff back then, but it was really short, but it wasn't release worthy because I was talking in it and stuff. But this one, whenever I had that piece of wood from the spirits, like the nature spirits, and I played, I knew that was it. That was the first one, because I was using something that was given to me from the spirits here to help you step into the portal to connect with the spirits around you. Whether you believe it or not, we all have a spirit guide team, and angels or ancestors, or they may be different for everybody. Like yours are different than mine. Who is on your team is different than mine. Maybe you don't have a team. I don't know. But I feel like everyone does, because I feel like spirit is so present around us all the time. And this sound, I use the wood given to me by spirit to create something where we can sit down, close our eyes, and just settle into the sounds, like the real world sounds that are in there. You can hear my dog walking in the leaves and everything. And just tune in and ask, spirit guides, what do you have to show me today? And then just whatever comes into your mind, whether it's something that you've been worrying about all day, whether it's something new, whether you think of an old friend, whatever it is, stop, grab that thing that comes in and ask, what more do you want to show me about this? And wait. And another thought will come in about that thing, or you might see a color, or you might feel something. Lean into that. Just take the time, and it's only like 3.5 minutes or 4 minutes or something. But just take that time, just those few minutes. It doesn't matter what sounds are going on around you. It doesn't matter what thought drops in when you ask. Or it doesn't matter what, doesn't even have to be a thought. It doesn't matter what drops in when you ask, Spirit, what do you have for me with this? Just follow that trail and start like an investigative track with it, and try to figure out what the message is for you each time, if that makes sense. And that's kind of what I do. Or if I have like a specific thing I'm working on over and over in my mind, like a project I'm working on, like, do I use this clip, or do I re-record it, or whatever. Like, I'll sit down, and you might have just heard the birds and the loud vehicle going by. Those are like keys to me. Like, spirit is listening. That's like other energies are being stirred when I'm asking that question. So that means spirit is present and listening. So I just have to be present and listen. And once I do that and find the presence and listen, I usually find the answer. And so I hope that you can do the same. And that was my first song that I made. I recorded it in 2022. I recorded some other singing bowl sounds that I have put out on YouTube and TikTok and other places, and they're just clips, like video clips. But that was the first one that whenever I recorded that, I knew, because it was given to me, the wood was given to me by spirit to record this exact one. I knew I had been thinking about recording my own music and releasing music, but that was my message from spirit, that here's your first thing to get started with. Use this. And I sat down and I was editing. It wasn't quite long enough, so I made it longer, and I made like a middle part with an echo. And I really had fun. It was the first time I really dove into editing sounds in that way. And it was so much fun. And I went through the process of getting registered and getting signed up with TuneCore to release music and all this stuff. And I got it all ready, and I submitted on Christmas Eve on 2022 to be my first song to come out on my mom's birthday on January 29th, 2023. And through that process of making that song, editing, submitting, releasing, and it coming out, between submitting and it coming out, that's when Crossing the Veil was born. And I'll go into that story in just a minute, but I'll probably take a break here and record that in a different space. I think those are bats. Hi soul friends, it's Amanda from the editing chair. I know I told you before, I will drop in sometimes if I feel there's something missing in the connection, even after the transitionary sound. For this next thing, as I was trying to think of all the stories I wanted to share in this episode, the creation of the Crossing the Veil painting story kind of channeled its way out, and that kind of helped me drop in to start recording all of my different story times that are going to clip together in the rest of this episode. And it's going to be kind of long because these stories came out in kind of a long form, and I don't know that my episodes are going to be this long in the future. Maybe I should split it up into two, but I really want to just let it all run together, because this is like the whole beginning of me working as an energy artist. This was like after I had been painting for a couple of years, but I was really starting to drop in with the way that I liked to make my content, and the way that I like to channel sound, and the way that I like to edit and meditate, and the way that I like to paint, and the way that I like to channel my art. And it's when I started kind of feeling myself out as an energy artist and a sound magician, like putting my intention and opening the channels and channeling sound, channeling art in the way that I had been for years channeling messages for myself from my spirit team through meditation and through reading oracle cards. And it was just me developing my spiritual gifts on a different level, in a different way. And so that's like the painting came through, and it was like a beacon where I opened the portal to help me connect with my own magic in a deeper way. And then whenever the messages from spirit came into being as a sound, I knew that the cover art fit that. And then when Crossing the Veil came into being, I knew that the cover art obviously fit that because of the name. And I'll talk more about that later, and I'm sorry if things get repeated where I record them on different days. But like I said, this one was the second day I sat down recording stories. The last section was the first day I sat down recording stories. And right now I'm on like the third or fourth day in editing, like in the whole process. So the more I do this, the better I'll get. But I really appreciate you listening, and I hope you keep listening, no matter how long it turns out to be, because these are some great channeled stories that I've really been wanting to share with people for a while. And I'll stop talking now so that I can talk some more. And I need to talk about the Crossing the Veil painting. Today I went through and I was checking on my camera roll and my stuff from my stuff from the year I made the painting, and I found all of the little clips that I made. And I had used a cinnamon stick and burnt the end of it and lit, smudged the air with the smoke around me. And then I drew a star on the canvas and then circled it. And I was infusing my magic and my intentions for peace and positivity into the painting. And I was infusing it with all the good stuff to come to me for my highest good, like for the future and for my work and things like that. And I love that I did that, and I've over the years have forgotten that I did that on that painting. That's the only one I've ever done that on, but I just felt in that moment like I needed to do that before I painted that one. And that's when I made the Crossing the Veil painting, and that came before the song, before any of the songs. And I was just starting to experiment with infusing my intention and channeling into art. And whenever it first came out, I was looking at it upside down, and I didn't quite see the Crossing the Veil scene yet. I saw like a tornado in one side. And then later, after it dried and I looked at it again, I turned it upside down. That's when I noticed it looks like the figures in the upper right side. It looks like the energies of spirits crossing over and like meeting someone or meeting their loved ones on the other side, or meeting angels or God or whoever to welcome them to the other side across the veil. And then down in the lower left quarter, there's like disrupted energy, like anxious and sad and grieving energy of people left on earth. It doesn't exactly look like people as much as the one on the right upper corner, but it's like that not anxious, but like it's like the energy of grief and disruption and transformation and things on the bottom. And so that's when I was like, okay, that's literally like, once I saw that and it clicked, and I'm like, that's an image of Crossing the Veil, and that's the energies I see in there. And I was just so happy, and I named it that. And then I came home from that trip. I painted that one at Massanutten. I don't think it was the first painting I painted on that trip, but I have a few other like energy art paintings where I was channeling with the energy at the time, or energy with me, or whatever, in some of the art there. And I'll talk about those at other times. But I had just painted one at home like couple days before I left, that was with darker colors, and it came out and kind of reminds me of an image of the sky, where I had this time travel meditation where I went back in a ship back to my younger self, and the painting is called Into the Stars because that's what it looked like when I traveled through the stars back to my past self. And I'll talk about that again another time. I might have recorded that story a little bit before, but I will come back in. There's the ice maker telling me I need to wrap it up here. One more editing reflection. That's the same trip when I painted the Crossing the Veil painting. That's the same trip I was on when I decided that I wanted to start selling prints instead of originals mostly. And I always knew I wanted to keep a lot of my originals, but I felt like someday I would have to get rid of a lot of them. But now I realize I only have to let go of the ones that I'm ready to let go of, and I can sell prints of everything. And I want to rework my prints and do it differently than how I had it before, but maybe keep some of the ones I had before. I need to refocus on building my merch and my shop after I get caught up on some other projects, and that's not important here. But where I started learning about working with energy is also the same time whenever I realized that same energy can be infused into those prints. So everyone can buy that print and be tapped into that same energy. And Crossing the Veil, after I made that painting, was one of the first 3 prints that I decided to list, I'm pretty sure. I know Bleeding Heart was one of the first 3 prints. And I think The Spark was another one. And Enchanted Forest. Maybe Crossing the Veil was out of my second selection of prints, but it was like the first square one. The other ones were rectangular. But that's just a fun fact I wanted to add in before I go back into whatever I was trying to rephrase before I cut off this part.
The spirits may use this sound to send you a message.
That's another story for another time, like the Into the Stars. But the key about it is I painted Into the Stars when I first started painting outside on the porch at my house. And then I went on vacation. I brought Into the Stars in and sat it on my table inside to dry the day that we were leaving, so I didn't see the dry result until I came back. But then Crossing the Veil, I painted it on the deck of our condo on vacation, and they have a very similar energy and very similar look. And that's when I was not first, and other times I've channeled energy into paintings too, but that was one of the times that I knew I was experimenting and intentionally trying to channel energy into art and asking the energy to help me co-create spirit art type stuff or whatever. And that's where I started realizing that with Into the Stars, I painted my meditation scene into being. And then as it was drying here at home, I painted Crossing the Veil on vacation. And they have a very similar look and a very similar feel and color palette. And they're just kind of tied together in a way. And I haven't made a song for Into the Stars yet for that cover art, but maybe I will someday. And I'll tell you the story about the meditation some other time with a couple of other songs from my first year, but I want to try to rein it in to just messages from Spirit and Crossing the Veil kind of information in this one. Okay, let's take a minute to refresh. Hi soul friends, this is Amanda, and I want to welcome you back to Crossing the Veil. In the last episode, I told you about my NDE reoccurring memory. And then I want to take this podcast a little bit further into talking about some of the stories behind my sound magic or my instrumental meditation sounds or some of my energy art or moments where I have connected with spirit to channel energy into paintings so that once they dry and I let them sit for a while and I look at them over and over, eventually they start showing me images and stories. And as I meditate with them more, I connect more with the spirits or the energies or the messages that want to come through the art. And as that happens, I want to tell you some of that stuff. Or as that happens, I make songs. Or as I'm making songs, they feel like they connect to stories from art pieces. Or sometimes I'll tell you just a story from an art piece and how it's going to become an oracle card someday. Or I don't know, I just want to share a lot of stories with you. And in this episode, we're going to talk about my first 2 sound magic tracks, Messages from Spirit and Crossing the Veil. And they share the same cover art, which is called Crossing the Veil. And at some point, I will tell you the story about how the cover art came to be. I will tell you about how Crossing the Veil, the sound, came to be, how Messages from Spirit came to be, and it was before Crossing the Veil. But Messages from Spirit had a little bit of a hiccup where I had to remake it, and there are 2 versions. Some platforms only have one version or the other. Some have both. If you get a chance to listen to both versions, I would love for you to tell me which one's your favorite. One is just called Messages from Spirit, and one is called Messages from Spirit Revisited with Pink Noise. So for the sake of recap and connecting the things from the beginning and what I just said, I have so far told you about the creation of Messages from Spirit, the sound, and I've told you the creation of the Crossing the Veil painting, which is the cover art. So next, let's talk about the creation of the Crossing the Veil sound magic. The Crossing the Veil story for the sound is much more layered, and that's where I'm going to talk about how it all started on Christmas Eve. I posted a duet with someone on TikTok and who was playing flute for the heart chakra, I think. But I posted that right before or right after I submit Messages from Spirit for release. And I was waiting to find out if it was going to be approved or not. And the next day we had like Christmas dinner. People came over and we were visiting in my grandma's, in Annie's room. And I was telling my family, like my boyfriend and my cousin and my mom and dad and Annie about it. And then the next day on Christmas, Annie all day or like all evening was like belching and stuff and was having pain in her back and stuff. And like later that night on Christmas night, we eventually was turned into December 26th. It was after midnight. We'd given her stuff for like upset stomach at bedtime, and Celia started going crazy and kept wanting me to go back in there. So I went to check, and Annie was still up and still like belching and stuff. And so we called the ambulance and they came and took her to the hospital, and then they sent her to a different hospital. She had a heart attack, and then she had some blockages that had to be stented. And she had like some procedure. She had a procedure in the hospital, And then she was there for a while, and we stayed there, and I'm losing the channel, but we stayed in the hotel while she was in the hospital. Hold on. Let's drop back in with messages from Spirit. I know I recorded some stuff about that yesterday, and I'm trying to drop back in to share more information about it. I remember whenever I was editing that sound and finalizing it before I submit it for release. I don't remember if it was right before or right after I submit that sound, like for review, where I'm my very first song and I'm sitting here wondering, like, is it going to be approved? Is it going to go through? Are people going to listen to it? Like, is it really going to be out there? I was in like this whole new portal opening thing, okay? And there was a video on TikTok from Cody the Sound Healer, and he was playing flute, Native American style flute, for the heart chakra. And I posted a duet where I was intentionally using my hands and closing my eyes and moving energy. I could feel energy moving out of my heart, like dark energy moving out of my heart and light energy moving back in. And it was like opening my heart chakra. And I had no idea how important that moment was going to be until a few days later. So I submit messages from Spirit early in the morning on December 24th, on Christmas Eve. And later that afternoon on Christmas Eve, my cousin and my boyfriend and maybe my uncle, I can't remember, we were having dinner in my grandmother's room with my mom and dad and my grandma for Christmas dinner and exchanging gifts with Annie and things like that. And I remember telling like the family, hey, I just submit my, like, it was the first time I told someone about it because I'd been working on getting ready to submit this for a while because I had to submit, like get registered and set up my account, things like that. And I'm sitting, it's been less than 12 hours and I don't know if it's going to be approved even to go through to try to come out to like Spotify or Amazon or Apple or anything like that. And I'm saying, this is like my new project. I don't know how this is going to be. I don't know how this is going to work out, but like I'm going to have music out there, maybe. And so I'm like all excited about this first song. And this was recorded with my throat chakra singing bowl. So then everything goes fine. The rest of the day goes fine. The next day on Christmas, my mom and dad and I spend the day with Annie off and on. And at dinner time, like by dinner time, she's starting to have like this belching and upset stomach and stuff. And this is on Christmas and December 25th. And we give her some kind of stomach medicine and stuff and put her to bed. She goes to bed and we put her bed down and turn the TV off and lights out and whatever around 11:30 that night. And we all leave her room. And then later that night, I was outside recording with a singing bowl with my dog Celia behind the fence. And it was like 1:30 in the morning, and Celia was going crazy wanting to go in Annie's room. And I know in the beginning, like this was in December 2022 and Annie moved in here in June 2022, and Celia's obsession was trying to go in there and trying to get her cat. And so I thought that she just wanted to go see the cat or try, to go bark at the cat and knock over the stand and all that stuff. But eventually she kept trying so hard to go in there. We went out and recorded something else with one of the singing bowls. I don't know if I just had the throat chakra bowl or if I had my Buddha bowl and my I think I had my Buddha bowl and my divine masculine and divine feminine bowl by that time also. I don't know if I had the Buddha bowl then or not, but I'm pretty sure I had the divine masculine, divine feminine, and the throat chakra bowl. And I don't know which one I recorded with, but Celia the whole time was like antsy, like wanting to go in Annie's. So when we came in, she was still trying to get in there. So I was like, okay, I'll go check on her. And this was like 2 or 2:30 in the morning on December 26th. And Annie was still up and still had indigestion. And so I woke up my mom and dad, and they came down, and like we decided to call the ambulance, and they came and they took her to the hospital. She was having a heart attack, and they sent her by helicopter to another hospital, and she was there from December 26th until sometime in January, like between the 4th and the 9th or 8th, or I don't think it was that long though. I think we were there like 8 or 9 days total, but I'm not 100% sure. But anyway, so it started with that heart chakra energy moving video that I posted as a duet to Cody's heart chakra flute sound, because I could really feel the energy, like the healing energy moving. And that was on the same day that I submit my first sound messages from Spirit for release. And then when Annie was in the hospital and we were staying at the hotel, most nights I was playing my Tree of Life singing bowl in either the stairwell in the hotel or outside at the picnic table areas, like out back behind the hotel. And it was one of those nights outside, one of the last nights we stayed there, I was outside playing my Tree of Life Tibetan singing bowl. It's a metal bowl from the omstore.com. And I had this meditation where I was walking with the spirit while they crossed over. And in the meditation, hold on a second. Okay, so where was I? I had to take a pause and recalibrate my mind and drop back into the full story of creating the Crossing the Veil sound. So that one kind of tapered off, and I probably used a sound transition from one of the songs. This is a fun fact that I want to share with you. To me, it's meaningful, and I don't know if people notice these things or not. So I like to share like these little fun facts. They're fun facts to me. At the beginning of this episode, I was using the messages from Spirit sound as the transitional pieces. And you may notice now that I'm going into more talking about the Crossing the Veil sound, I'm going to start using the Crossing the Veil sound again. And here's my self-promotion section. Please follow me on TikTok or YouTube or Instagram or Facebook or Flipshop. Help me by watching my videos, help me get my watch time up. And also, if you want to listen to Messages from Spirit or Crossing the Veil or any of my other sound magic meditation sound releases, or my one current guided meditation sound called Creating Your Path, which I'll talk about in a later episode, you can find me on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, YouTube, Pandora, iHeart, and if you're in other countries, my music goes out to like 20 to 30 different places. So just look for my artist name, Gemini Witch 83, and you should be able to find it wherever you listen to music. And so let's drop back into the Crossing the Veil story. Where was I? Okay, so we started off with I submit messages from Spirit, and I submitted on December 24th. Annie had a heart attack on December 26th. We go to stay in a hotel by the hospital so that we can go to visit Annie every day and then go back to the hotel at night. And then every night, almost every night in the hotel, I went and played my Tree of Life singing bowl, and I played it for a couple of hours on New Year's Eve, like to ring in the new year at midnight and 3 a.m. so that if there was anyone that was alone, they had someone to be with on New Year's Eve that year. That's where I recorded the Crossing the Veil meditation sound, and where I had my Crossing the Veil meditation. And this happened just a few days after, within 10 days after I submit messages from Spirit for release. The messages from Spirit release date was January 29th, 2023, because they had recommended to put it in 3 to 4 weeks in advance before when your release date. They recommend picking 4 weeks out from when you submit it, at least before your release date, to make sure it has time to fully go to all the stores in time and go through all the different stores review processes. And January 29th is my mom's birthday, so putting it in on December 24th, that was more than 4 weeks, so that was a perfect time frame for me. And so then one of our last nights in the hotel, I'm playing my singing bowl outside. I only took the Tree of Life bowl with me. And I guess my eyes were closed, and I was really tuned in to the meditative space and the visions coming in my mind. And that's how I open the channel. I don't have a plan for what I'm going to play. I just go by in the moment. It just comes out how it comes out. And that's kind of how my visions happen whenever I am listening, or I'm in the moment, or when I'm painting or meditating with a painting or anything like that. And I was just in that meditation space, and I saw a spirit come to me, and then I saw a path open up, and there were like leaves on the ground, but it was a path under the trees. And we walked back under the trees, like back into the forest, back into the dark. And I'm seeing this in my mind's eye, visualizing this as my meditation, as I'm playing this sound. And the sound's just coming through me. The meditation's dropping in my mind, and I'm just walking with this spirit. And we just go however long the song goes. And then his family member comes out from along the tree line, from along the edge, and the guy like says bye to me and goes off with this family member, and they go into the trees, and they cross the veil and they go away. And I come to the end of creating this sound, and like I stop the recording and everything, and I'm sitting there outside, and I'm like, wow, holy cow. Like I just helped a spirit cross over. And this hotel was like super close to the hospital there. And that hospital was actually the hospital I was in 20 years prior to that, when I was in my car accident and I had my near-death experience, and when I had both of my lungs collapse, I had like 7 rib fractures and a shoulder fracture. I had a grade 4 liver laceration. I had an aortic tear. I had a skull fracture and brain contusions and a mini stroke, and like my TBI, which is like a big shaper of how I am, like the way I am today, like my TBI, and restructuring my brain after it is kind of what made me into like how I am now. And so I was so close to that space where I had been in that liminal space after my accident, where I had been so close, or where I had crossed over and come back. And so this spirit like had heard me for days playing this singing bowl sound, and seen me dropping into this meditation space. And like on some of the recordings or some of the lives that I did there, I was calling out things that I saw in meditation. And sometimes I was seeing a door. This is where I first started seeing a door in my meditation space. And for the longest time, I couldn't open the door. But somewhere in like the past year, the door has started opening. When I want to open the door, I open the door. And when I want to close the door, I close the door. But back then, the end of 2022, this was the first week of 2023. This is where I record this. I have this meditation, and this is after I had started painting with energy, which is after I made the cover art for Messages from Spirit and Crossing the Veil. It's like that painting was the beacon that brought this channeling so much stronger to me, and so much more belief and faith in myself. Or I used to like doubt myself or think I was making this stuff up, but through paintings and putting intentions in paintings and channeling sounds, I started learning that I wasn't making it up, that it was real. This is like one of the first moments that I really realized how real my meditations were, and how real the spirit interactions I thought I had been having were. They really were. And so that's when I knew that this had to be my next release. My first one hadn't even come out yet, and I hadn't even known if I was ever going to make any more. But when I had that meditation, I knew that this had to be the next release. And I knew that it was called Crossing the Veil. And I knew, I had this aha moment, like, yes, it matches the painting, it matches the cover art exactly. And I was like, it's so fitting that I used Messages from Spirit. I used that as the cover art for Messages from Spirit too, because that sound has a way of crossing the veil as well, and bringing the listener into that meditation space to open your mind for those stories to come in, for your spirit to go meet spirit and help them where they need it. And there's more to come about the whole process of editing Crossing the Veil and more, but I'm getting interrupted again, so I'll be back. Okay, so where was I? So the next day after I recorded Crossing the Veil, I was in this stairwell at the hotel, and I was editing Crossing the Veil because, like I said, I knew right away that this had to be my next release. And I think that I did one of the same things that I did with Messages from Spirit, where I took a part of it and I doubled it and kind of put it in the middle, and then put the original like ending at the ending. I don't know 100% if I did that with this one or not, but I think I did. And I I don't know if I even put the original beginning back and then the original ending, or I don't know exactly for sure, but I know that I did something where I did something different in the middle, and that's irrelevant. But wait. But as I was editing that and editing the different parts and putting them together, and I was trying to remove a sound of a car driving by on the road out in the distance, because I was sitting outside of a hotel in a busy, like, it's a university hospital that's nearby, and so I was trying to cut out some of the background noise. At the time, that was my second release, I was trying really hard to limit a lot of background sounds, and as I've gone on, I've started including more and more of the original background sounds because I appreciate those being there, because that's what makes it unique and what makes it a real sound captured in a moment, or a real moment captured in a sound form. And anyway, I was trying to edit over and over, but as I'm editing in that stairwell, listening to this over and over and over, different parts, different sections with headphones, and doing different adjustments, and I was just learning. I was still just first learning, practicing, editing music altogether. Sorry, I'm readjusting, so you may hear some movement sounds, but I was just getting started at learning how I like to edit my music. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was just having fun feeling it out. And as I was feeling it out, and I would get a section lined up or get it lined up one way, I would listen to it all the way through and close my eyes with my headphones, and I would meditate. And one of the run-throughs, I had another one of those crossing the veil meditations like the original. But this time it wasn't just one spirit and I walking down a tree-lined path. It was a whole ship full of people, like a whole boatload of people. And we set out on water. And then after we got so far, about 2/3 of the way through, the ship turned into a cloud ship, like a large boat, but like a cloud. And I was left like on the ground below, and the cloud just sailed off into the sky. And like all of these people just sailed off into the clouds. But it was my presence and my sound and my energy in this portal that I opened with this sound that brought these people. These were all of these lingering spirits that had passed away at that hospital over the years, that had been like in that moment where right in the moment they hadn't been ready to go, or they hadn't had an understanding, or whatever reason, they hung around for whatever reason. But after the first one like took that practice trip, the rest of them, like, I'm sure not all of the spirits in the area, but there was a whole probably 50 to 100 spirits on that boat. And it was like the sound was the beacon that drew them in. And it's funny that I say that, because I keep saying now that I looked back and found the footage of creating the painting, I see that the painting was the beacon that brought the sound into life. The painting was the portal, the painting was the doorway, or the lighthouse, or whatever you want to call it. And then Messages from Spirit was attached to that painting as well, because it was me opening my communication to my spirit team to ask for their help in making more of these sounds so that I could help others. And in starting out, I started out with this second one by helping spirits. And in helping those spirits, that helps others too. And when the meditations and the helping the spirits cross over kept happening when I was working with this song, that's how I knew the song was called Crossing the Veil. And I knew it perfectly fit the description of how, like the meditation that I had with the energy of the painting telling me about the painting. And it still fits messages from Spirit, and messages from Spirit by this time had been approved and sent to stores, but wasn't released yet because this was somewhere in the first 10 days of January, probably the first 5 days of January, that these two meditations were happening with this sound. Okay, I had to take a moment again. So for the timeline, we're up to somewhere by like the 5th of January probably, and I have recorded the Crossing the Veil sound and started editing the sound, and I've had the meditations where I've helped spirits cross over. Then my grandmother gets moved from the hospital to a nursing home, and my mom and I come home. And when we come home, one of my new singing bowls that I had ordered had arrived while we were away. And this one was my first heart chakra singing bowl with rose quartz and green, like the colors for the heart chakra. And so I took it outside to play it. I don't know if it was the first night we came home or the next night. I think the first night we came home, I opened it and played it in the living room a little bit. But I thought I recorded it, but I can't find that video on my camera roll. But I know either that night or the next night or the next night, one of the next couple of nights, I took it outside to play it. But it was really cold because it was early January, and I wasn't very careful. After I finished playing it, and I had it in my lap, I was trying to get my phone off of the tripod above me, and I dropped my phone into my lap into the bowl, and the bowl shattered. And I have left that heart chakra bowl outside in that area for ever since then, because I keep thinking that maybe someday I will think of a way to repurpose and reuse that crystal. Like either I'll break it up and put it in a painting, or I can try to put it back together with resin somehow. I don't know. But I will figure out how to repurpose that some other day. But that's the heart chakra tie-in as well. Like, remember, this started out with the same day that I submit messages from Spirit, I was practicing learning how to move energy and visualizing energy healing or chakra cleansing while I was listening to Cody's music. And a quick plug for Cody, he releases music on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, that stuff too. I think Cody Joshua. But it started out with that, and then Annie had a heart attack, and then I broke my heart chakra bowl. And then a few days later, my mom gets sick. And my mom and I have been sick off and on. Like the whole time we were in the hotel, we were both like kind of sick. We were really tired and like slept a whole lot, and it was really draining to go in and out of the cold, to go to the hospital and come back every day. We both have autoimmune stuff, and we were both getting run down and kind of sick. And so we'd had the flu in December, like early to mid-December, and we had just been getting better for a week or so around Christmas. And then we were for like 9 or 10 days away from home after Christmas, and we were kind of run down. And then we get home, and she gets COVID. And then a little bit later, I started getting this really, really horrible neck pain. And it just felt like my neck was gonna snap whenever I would like sometimes bend my head, like if my head would go back or something, or it would feel like fire. It just hurt so bad. And then I started getting the COVID symptoms. And so then I'm like, okay, that neck pain is probably from COVID. But then it started getting worse, and I started getting the chest pain. And then I started getting like this feeling where I couldn't quite get my breath or couldn't quite swallow right or something. And I remembered that the last time I had that kind of feeling with swallowing was when I had a PE, or a pulmonary embolism, or a blood clot in my lung in 2007. So that's when I knew I needed to go to the ER. So I had my dad take me to the ER. And by this time, this is January 28th, and my song is supposed to come out on January 29th. I had been sick for with the neck pain for a week to a week and a half leading up to this day when I went to the ER, but I kept feeling more and more drained of energy, and I was trying to take videos of paintings and a whole lot of stuff in Annie's room because she was about to come home from the nursing home. And I was trying to use her room because she has a lot of good lighting in her ceiling. And I was just too sick to do it that night. So that, on the 27th night. So then that's when I knew that on the 28th I needed to go to the ER and get checked for COVID and a PE and stuff like that. And I'm going to stop here and I'll be back in a second. So during this time, between when we get home, somewhere around January 5th, maybe, sometime later, I forgot to mention, we were feeling run down in the hotel and running back and forth to the hospital every day. But then, the next weekend after we came home, we went to visit family in Ohio for the weekend. And then we came back home, and that's when we started getting sick again. And started off later that week, my mom got COVID, and then a few days after that, my neck pain started, and I started getting sick. But all this time, I'm working on editing Crossing the Veil because I was learning how I could customize different types of editing tools, and I was learning what the different things in EQ do, and I was learning about compression and learning about just different stuff, and I was figuring that out, teaching myself how to edit my music through my intuition. I was following my intuition with the numbers to adjust the customization to on different settings, and it was fun, and I was listening to a bunch of different versions trying to figure out exactly how I wanted it to sound. And I was making videos every day, and at this time I was trying to make 2 and 3 videos every day, and that's all I had time for a lot of times back then, was making 3 videos a day, trying to meet algorithm standards to try to gain following. I've always wanted to get to a monetization level on publishing my videos, but I just never get enough watch time or enough followers. So I've since learned that's okay, that's fine. I don't have to make money from making videos. I make the videos because I enjoy doing it, so I don't have to make so many to try to do it that way. I can just make the one a day that I enjoy putting out now, so that I have time to work on different things like creating a podcast and making more sound magic and making more paintings and making more jewelry and different projects and different things. So I got distracted.
Let me know what the Spirit sent to you. Thank you, spirits. Namaste.
Okay, so at that time I was trying to put out 3 video clips a day and putting it on 4 different platforms, and I would spend a lot of time typing the descriptions and typing the different text on screen, and I would work a lot of times 8 to 10 to 12 hours a day on editing and posting, and sometimes the upload process can take hours at a time going from one platform to another. And when I had the time, I was dropping in intuitively playing with editing the sounds, and I was starting to really get the feel for that and start to enjoy doing something different, but also still editing and still reading energy and listening and feeling which one feels better and hearing which one sounds better. But during this time, I'm starting to get more and more and more ill. So I started resting and playing video games. I was playing some game that I'd wanted to play for a long time, and now I can't think of the name of it. But I remember playing this at the time when my neck was hurting so bad. And that's irrelevant. But then I got... Okay, so then as I'm editing this, I'm getting more and more ill. So it comes to the day where I have no energy to work on videos, to record anything. I took a whole bunch of paintings to Annie's, and then I brought them all back out, trying to put them away, but I just didn't have the energy to put them all away, so I left them all in the pantry and went to bed for a while and woke up and took a shower and was like, I have to go to the ER, and I had my dad take me to the ER on January 28th. And I felt so sick on the ride down there. I kept getting super hot and super chilled and super hot and super chilled. Kept feeling like I was going to throw up or pass out. And I remember the last time I felt that bad was when I had a blood clot in my lung in 2007. And so we got there to the ER, and the lady was kind of rude. The PA or the nurse or whatever she was kind of rude. They always are. And she was just like, well, yeah, you probably have COVID, like acting like I was being stupid for coming to the ER. And later in the night, like, eventually they took me for a CT, and that's when I was like, okay, it is a PE, because they must have seen something on the x-ray, something in my labs. And then after I come back from CT, she comes back in and she's like, did you have a small PE or like a small blood clot in your lung or pulmonary embolism or something? I forget exactly what she says. Forget exactly how she said it, but she's like, you have a small blood clot in your lung. I said, I was afraid of that. That's why I came in. She said, oh, you were? And I was like, well, yeah. But she hadn't asked me my history, if I had any history of blood clots or anything. And I was so sick I'd forgotten to tell her in the beginning that I had a history of blood clots, or that that's what I thought that I had or anything. Because I didn't want them to think that I had gone in so many times for chest pain, thinking I had another PE when I didn't. And then they kept thinking that I was just attention seeking or something, that I just didn't want to say that. I wanted them to find it and tell me. And they did. And then another nurse came in, a male nurse came in, and he was way nicer. And so then I was being admitted, and by then it was well after midnight. And when I got my room upstairs, it was early in the morning. And by then it was January 29th, and it was my mom's birthday, and Messages from Spirit was released that day. I have a quick editing note. I do want to say that when I have been admitted in the hospital, 99% of the time, the nurses and the staff and the doctors and everyone has been really nice. And I've had good care as an inpatient. But when I say they're usually rude, I mean in the ER. Because, like I said, I've gone for chest pain multiple times and told them over and over of my history of having a PE and they don't find anything, and they treat me like I'm attention seeking or like I'm drug seeking, and they don't really want people to come into the ER just for COVID. But the reason I went was because of my history of PE, but she was treating me like a stupid person with just COVID coming in. And I've had a lot of not so nice experiences in the ER. Until later I found out a lot of the pain was inflammation in my ribs, and once I started taking medication for my autoimmune condition, the inflammation is greatly reduced and I don't have as much unexplained or whatever chest pain anymore, so I don't have to go in and face that as often. But I just have so much of a history of that. That's why I threw that in there. I don't mean to say that all the nurses and all the staff are always rude at the hospital. And when I was in the hospital for that time, they were all super nice. Like, everyone that treated me at that time was really nice, except for the first lady that I saw in the ER that night. And so then I was being admitted, and by then it was well after midnight. And when I got my room upstairs, it was early in the morning. And by then it was January 29th, and it was my mom's birthday, and Messages from Spirit was released that day. But I kept checking on Spotify, and it wasn't on Spotify. And it took me a long time to think to check any other music outlets, but I just kept checking and checking, and so I was like, maybe it doesn't come out at midnight, maybe it comes out at a different time. So I went to sleep, and I kept checking all the next day, and it wasn't out. I don't know how long it took me. Somehow I found out it didn't go through to Spotify, but it was on Apple, and it's on YouTube, and it's on Amazon, and it's on a lot of other places. It just didn't go to Spotify. This is Messages from Spirit I'm talking about. And so on that day that it was supposed to come out, I didn't see it because I kept checking Spotify. But eventually later I figured out it was on other places. I may have figured out that same day it was on other places. But then my mind started wondering, like, maybe I can resubmit it to get it to go on Spotify too? Or maybe I have to remake it? But that started my mind wondering how I could remake it. And I really can't remember if I added pink noise to Crossing the Veil to muffle some of the car sounds and some of the wind sounds or not. But while I was in the hospital over the next few days, I was there for 4 or 5 days or 3 days, somewhere between 3 and 5 days after that. I was still in the editing process of Crossing the Veil, even though Messages from Spirit hadn't quite hit Spotify and hadn't hit right for some reason or whatever. I was still working on Crossing the Veil, and I was editing it in my room. And I really don't remember if I used pink noise in Crossing the Veil or not. But somewhere in playing around with that is how I decided later to add pink noise into Messages from Spirit to do a remake, so I could re-release Messages from Spirit later so that it would go on Spotify. But let's go back to being in the hospital and recording or editing Crossing the Veil. Hold on. Everything was getting jumbled, so I needed to take a break and come back. So Messages from Spirit didn't go to Spotify, and I probably listened to it some on Apple or YouTube or somewhere else while I was in the hospital. But I was working on Crossing the Veil while I was in the hospital. I was still doing those different tweaks to the edits, like adjusting it this way and listening, and adjusting it this way and listening, and comparing which version I like, and going back and forth on things. And while I started listening to Crossing the Veil in my hospital room, I started seeing spirits in my hospital room. And one of them came through, and one of them, initially, one of those first days in the hospital, when I'm there super close to the veil with my PE, I go with this spirit while they go. It was another tree-lined path, but this one there was like a stone walkway that we walked like on a sidewalk along a building, like around the side of a building and behind off into the woods. And then their loved ones came and met them, and then I came back to my hospital room at the time. And then a couple others came through when I was listening, and they were kind of confused. And one even asked me, sometimes I use, when I see spirits and I want to communicate with them, I use Spirit Talker or Ghost Tube or something like that, and see if relevant words come through where I can communicate with them. And one of them asked me one of the times when I was listening to either messages from Spirit or Crossing the Veil, one of them asked me, did I die? Or am I dead? Or something like that. And I had to tell them, yes, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened, but you are a spirit right now. I can see you, but you're a spirit right now. Like, I see them, like the movement and the shape, sometimes like in apparition, and I was seeing them in apparition and in shadows move in my room. And then I could see, then whenever I close my eyes, I see more details in like my mind's eye. And I said, I don't know what happened, but you are a spirit. And then another one was asking me, like what I was doing. And I explained to them that I was editing my meditation sound when I created this sound, I helped spirits cross over, and that anytime I was working on this sound in this room, if they were ready to go, they could come to me and I would walk with them. But no more were ready to go. But every time I was editing, they did come close to listen. So I think that sound is a beacon, and it draws them in. And I guess it drew me awful close in working with it. And being close when Annie had the heart issue, then I had the lung issue. I broke the heart bowl. I decided at that time when I broke the heart bowl that I would collect every other bowl first before I got the heart bowl again. And it just felt like a full circle thing with that sound. Crossing the veil, connecting with spirits. That's what that sound and that's what messages from Spirit is for. Helping me or helping you connect with Spirit, whatever that means to you, like whether you want to connect with your loved one and speak with them and ask them questions, and you open that channel in yourself and you become receptive for the answers, or you want to ask your spirit guides questions or to invite them in to help you with things, or if you want to help cross spirits over in your area that are like in your space and you want to help them move on, maybe that sound can help you do the same thing. And that's why it felt so important to me to get it out there. And it was just more and more confirmation. Each time I listened and worked on it, spirits came near. And I want to go back to something else about the spirits that kept coming in my room when I listened when I was in the hospital. One of my nurses or aides told me one night that they had unexpectedly lost someone. She told me this the day before or the day after this spirit came. She told me this. And I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. I don't know. It was the day before or the day after the spirit came through and asked me, am I dead? She told me that they had unexpectedly lost someone, and that patient had been making a recovery, and then something just randomly happened. No details like outside of that. But then another day, after I was listening and working with it and spirits were coming, another nurse told me that they had just run a code. And the previous one had told me that there was another patient that they were expecting to go soon that hadn't yet, but that the one that had passed was more unexpected. And so that, and then these messages coming through, am I dead? What are you doing? What's going on? They were like curious, and the sounds were drawing them in. And I think my closeness to the veil in having the blood clot in my lung, I think all of that was drawing them into me and asking me questions. And I was just trying to be a guide to help them if they were ready to go. And that's what I want the sounds to be for people that do the kind of work where you help people cross over. Or maybe people that work in hospitals, like maybe you can listen to it or play it in a hospital room after someone passes and see if it can help clear the air or help carry the spirit across the veil. I don't know, but I just felt like through all those experiences, it was more and more and more confirmation that I kept getting that it had to be a song that had to go out there. And that also told me that even though Messages from Spirit didn't go to Spotify the first time, I had to figure out a way to get it there. And so I had to keep editing on that one after I finished Crossing the Veil so that I could get it out there too.
This is one that was given to me by the spirits here.
So then I selected March 1st, 2023 for the release date of Crossing the Veil, the sound, because it was Scott's birthday, my brother that passed away in 1998 in a car accident, very similar to the car accident that I was in 2003. And he's the one that was with me in my near-death experience memory, where he went through the tunnel with me and told me I had to come back. And I felt like that was the best way I could honor him and his memory and him being there for me through my Crossing the Veil experience by releasing Crossing the Veil sound magic or meditation sound on his birthday. And somewhere after that is, I don't know, I don't remember the timeline for when I re-edited Messages from Spirit, but somewhere through there, I knew that I had to remake Messages from Spirit, and I added pink noise under it, and I resubmitted with a new name, Messages from Spirit Revisited with pink noise, and I submitted for release on March 31st so that it would come out in the same month as Crossing the Veil, because it and the original Messages from Spirit and Crossing the Veil all share the same cover art, because they're all tied into that same entering the portal energy. Like Entering the Portal is the name of this episode. They all share that energy where I was opening that doorway, and that painting was opening that doorway, opening that portal to help me work with spirit and help me realize my purpose in coming back from my NDE and surviving both of my PEs and making these sounds and helping spirits cross over. Through making these sounds, messages from spirit and crossing the veil. I'm sorry, ice maker. That's the confirmation. Through making these sounds is when I started to realize that my purpose in coming back, part of my contract in coming back, was being a guide or a channel for helping spirits communicate their stories to others, and to help spirits cross over, and to help people who are close to the veil in some way, like from that side or this side. And I'm getting the chills as I talk about this, but I can talk more about that in a later episode, where I want to go in and talk about my Hecate inspired sound magic and creating your path. Because again, this is in this first year of making music, and those are so important. But those aren't going to come until later, like in the fall. That story's not going to come until later or in the fall, when those sounds came out originally. But this is where I'm opening that portal and learning through building these sounds and having these meditations with these sounds, is where I was starting to learn about coming back. Like, part of my coming back was in agreement to helping spirits cross over, or helping spirits tell their stories, or helping spirits find closure so they can, I don't know, I'm supposed to help spirits and help those close to the veil somehow, whether it's on this side or the other side. One more thing to tie off another one of the threads that I kind of pulled in this episode. Remember how I said I broke the heart chakra singing bowl, and I decided not to get that one again until last? At that time, I had my throat chakra bowl, which was my first crystal bowl, and my first chakra bowl. And when I ordered the heart chakra bowl, I also ordered my sacral chakra bowl. The sacral one didn't come until later. It didn't come until, I don't remember if it came before or after I went in the hospital. Probably before, but I can't remember. And so I didn't order any more of those crystal bowls for a while, because I broke that heart one, and then I had my PE. But then later that spring, with the sacral bowl, is when I recorded Hecate inspired sound magic. And then it wasn't until 2024 in the spring when I ordered my crown bowl, and then my third eye bowl, and then later in 2024 I ordered the root bowl, and then I ordered the solar plexus bowl. And then it wasn't until right around Christmas in 2024 that I ordered a heart chakra bowl, somewhere around like November, December, which is funny because that's probably when I recorded Messages from Spirit originally, when this all started with making music. And I ordered my heart chakra bowl, and then when it came, this was going to be the completion to my chakra bowl set. And it came, and I had ordered the one that was infused with emerald. And it came and it looked different. It looked like a different color from the picture. So I sent them an email and I asked, like, this doesn't quite look like the emerald one. And they're like, oh, we're so sorry. Let's send it out to you. And then they sent me the emerald bowl, and I offered to send the wrong one back. And they said, no, you're a long-time customer. Just keep it. So I ended up with 2 heart chakra bowls in the end, even though I only ordered one more. But it's like that wrong one that got sent was like the little message from spirit, like, hey, your heart chakra is finally healed now. And it's okay to get this one now. Let's complete your set and let's give you an extra one to replace the original one you broke. And it was just like this happy full circle moment at the end of like 2024 where I finally collected all of the chakra bowls from root to crown. And so then at the beginning of 2025, when I started making my sound magic releases, I decided that a couple of the sounds I'd recorded in August were good sounds to start off the year with, because one of them, Catharsis, was recorded with my root and sacral bowl, and then Awakening was recorded with my crown, third eye, and throat chakra bowl. And then I was going to make the next one be with throat, heart, and solar plexus to be like the middle to tie the whole unit together, and kind of how I bought the bowls out of order and how I aligned my own chakras out of order. But this heart-centered bowl was like tying it all together. But it just never felt quite right to make it. It just never felt quite right to make it. So I kept putting it off, and I didn't release anything for a couple of months. But then some other songs started creeping up that wanted to come out. And I was like, okay, I'll just put a hold on that heart chakra bowl sound, and started releasing other stuff. And I was like, I just have to wait until it's ready, because like I had to wait until it was ready for the bowl to come to me. The sound has to be ready to come out. So then I started thinking about some of the other stuff to put out this year, and I don't really mean to go in a lot of detail, but this is kind of like a what's coming up kind of thing for me, but it still ties off the story with the heart chakra bowl and the heart chakra in the end. So then Let It Flow decided that it wanted to come in May, which is one of my first instrumental sounds with my mini steel tongue drum. And then Cloudy Day Lullaby wanted to come out for June, which was one of my first experimental playthroughs with my moon lyre. And then I started coming back to my Rainy Day Meditations album from last year, and how I made that with an intent that it's a meditation from start to finish based on the title track of each song. That's like the stage of the meditation. But I don't think that quite hit, so I want to make a guided meditation version in my own kind of style, not like a traditional guided meditation, but my own style. And so I've been working on that, but all of a sudden this podcast came up and all these stories wanted to start coming out. So I took a break on like the Rainy Day Meditations work to start on the podcast. But I do have other songs planned for the rest of the year too. And finally, that heart-centered sound is wanting to come out in August, and it's going to be with the throat, heart, and solar plexus bowls, and it is called Emergence. And then in September, I have a sound coming called Whispers from a Fairy Tale, and it is with a Native American style flute. And then in October, I have an album coming of some different sounds recorded at Massanutten, where my family goes for vacation sometimes. So then I have like my whole year planned out of sounds from May through October, once I decided where that heart chakra bowl sound is going to come. And it's going to hit with the black moon in August. And it feels like the perfect alignment for emergence to come through on a black moon, which it is the third new moon in a cycle of like 4 new moons, I think, is what the black moon is. And so I'm excited that that's coming then, and the whole heart chakra cycle is going to come to like a close when that sound comes out. So I had all of this planned up, right? And all of my sounds scheduled, and then all of a sudden Annie starts getting sick again in the end of May, and she's in the hospital and she's transitioning. She's like preparing to cross the veil, and that's all of a sudden when the podcast decided that I had to start making the podcast and talking about crossing the veil, because I made that sound when she was in the hospital with her heart attack. And it just became so important that it had to come out right now. And I had to do the first one on 6/2 on June 2nd, because that's the day that I had my near-death experience. That's the day when I had my car accident. That's when I was life-flighted to the hospital, the same hospital where she was when I recorded Crossing the Veil. And it just all, I had to move the time for my July album to the new moon instead of the full moon, because I had to take a break after her funeral to start working on this next podcast episode. This one was going to come out on my birthday, but I just had to take a break, and I just had to wait. So I decided that it will come out on summer solstice. And then later I was talking to my friend about it, how it's going to come out on summer solstice. And I looked up when summer solstice is, and it's June 20th. So this is coming out on June 20th. Wouldn't you know it, that Annie's anniversary with, like, Annie's my grandma, her anniversary with my grandpa was on June 20th. And so instead of my birthday, this episode is coming out on her anniversary. And she transitioned, she crossed the veil on June 4th, 2025. Her husband, my grandpa, crossed the veil on June 4th, 1995. And so it's like this whole crossing the veil. That's why the podcast had to start. It had to be this year. It had to come out on my portal day, the first one on June 2nd. But this one has to be June 20th, because it has to honor Annie the way I created the Crossing the Veil sound when she was in the hospital. The whole heart chakra ball broke when she had a heart attack and I had a PE. A few months, like 5 months, 6 months after I get my new heart chakra bowls, her body gives out and she transitions, she crosses the veil. And then I have to move the episode because her viewing was on my birthday. So I couldn't have an episode come out that day. And it just all feels perfectly aligned. It's just the way it's meant to be. Because it's all about spirit communication and spirit transition, and that's one big part of crossing the veil, and that's how the sound came to be. And I just don't know what else I was going to say right now, so I'm going to take another break. It just all keeps cycling. It just all the threads just keep weaving together through time and space and energy, and close to the veil and not close to the veil, and crossing the veil and coming back. And it's just important to come through right now. And I had my whole year I had the whole rest of my year of sound releases planned out. And I've been thinking about making a podcast for years and years and years, and been thinking about writing books and making oracle cards and doing all kinds of different projects. But for so long, I've spent so much time in editing videos that I didn't have any time left to work on other projects. And so I had all my music planned out, and I had plenty of time to work on all that, and just this podcast just came through, like bursting through, like it had to be birthed in June. And it had to be on June 2nd and June 20th. That just makes sense. And I don't know what else to say about it other than I like pointing out all of these different things and all of the different stories and how they all tie together over time. And I like to talk about it and call attention to this kind of stuff because I want people to listen and start finding the threads in your own life and all the different pieces that tie together, and see what the deeper purpose and the deeper pushes are, and follow those pushes. Like when Spirit tells you to make a painting or to write a book or to post a video or to go to a certain store on a certain day or whatever, follow it. Follow the guidance, and the more you follow it, the more things are going to start going right. Even through the darkest times when you're losing a loved one that's been in your life your whole life, you're going to find the purpose and the meaning the more you keep seeing all of the good that comes out of everything that is all tied together whenever you go through it all. I want you to find the good in things and not dwell on the bad in things. Like I could be sitting here crying about my grandma, which, yes, I'm very sad that she's no longer here. But I'm also relieved that she is no longer suffering day in and day out with incurable pain. I am relieved that she's at peace and that she has gone on to be with her husband and to be with her son and to be with my brothers and to be with her family. She's been talking about her mother for months. She gets to go be with her mother and her brothers and her sister. And I choose to see the good in it and not dwell on the bad. And I could have like stopped with the PE and just like been, I'm sick, I'm not going to do anything, and just not have done anything ever again. But no, I kept working, and I'm there close to the veil, and I'm there talking to the spirits in my room, trying to help them come to terms with whatever happened to them. Trying to help someone see the good in something that they're going through. And that's the purpose in sharing these stories, even if it sounds like I'm just rambling and they have no point. The point is that they all tie together if you keep looking for the connections and keep following the threads. Keep looking for the lessons, keep looking for the good, keep looking for the positive, don't forget the negative, don't overlook the negative. Feel all the way through it and feel the pain. Feel the hurt, feel the anger, feel the suffering, feel whatever. But don't live in that. Feel it, transmute it into something that you can make out of it. Because you can make something out of it. And that's why I share my stories. Because I have so many stories to share that I want you to find something in yourself in, so that you can help yourself somehow. I think it's so telling that it was after I had all my music dates planned up that then Annie started to transition. And then I started to do the podcast because it had to be on my portal day on June 2nd. But then, you know what? If you take away the 0 on 620, you get 6-2 over again. 6 plus 2, it's an 8. It's an 8. They're both 8 days. Instead of 6-8 on my birthday, which was a 5 in numerology, I get another date that's an 8. And that's thanks to Annie for pushing me back, for making me take a break to honor her crossing the veil moment, and to honor her memory and remember my times with her, and sit with that energy in my own for a while, so that I could come back and talk about this stuff when I was more in a better headspace. And I still get an 8 out of it, numerology, and I still get an 8 out of it with 6 plus 2. So it works out. And I thank you for being here. I thank you for listening. I'm so sorry if it was jumbled or doesn't make sense to you. In my editing, I'll try to make sense. And I've tried to record as many of the stories as I wanted to share today.
This is one that was given to me by the spirits here.
So I wrap up recording a lot of stories that I wanted to channel so that I can go into editing tomorrow and put things in order for this episode. And then I go to TikTok to just decompress a little bit before I go upstairs and get ready for bed. And I've always said that my messages from Spirit, my guidance comes from my guides, and I'm about to sneeze as confirmation. Hold on. I had 3 sneezes as confirmation. I always say my guides come through for me through songs, when I turn music on a random playlist, or when they randomly just implant songs in my head and I'm about to sneeze again. I need to tell you about my spirit guided playlist sometime. Okay, I didn't have to sneeze, that channel came through. Or sometimes they randomly pop songs into my head, and I have made a playlist on my Spotify called Spirit Guided, because every song that they randomly stick in my head, or if they give me a very strong meditation message while I've listened to it, I put it on that playlist because it has a deeper meaning for me. And I guess they wanted me to recommend you doing that for yourself when songs get stuck in your head, or when you find deep understandings from meditation thoughts while you listen to certain songs. If they really resonate with you on a spiritual level, maybe start building your own spirit guided playlist.
The spirits may use this sound to send you a message.
It's 4:04. I feel Hecate coming through here. Another 8. Well, it's 4:04 on the clock in the kitchen. Lakshmi comes through in the 8s, I feel like. Okay, so Lakshmi's coming through. Anyway, I finished all of these channel recordings. I go to TikTok for a little decompression, and I always say my spirit team gives me messages through songs and through TikToks and through reels, but more often through TikToks than anything. They taught me painting through YouTube, I guess.
This is one that was given to me by the spirits here.
So I always say how my guides reach me through media, they reach me through deeper messages from songs that lead me to create a spirit guided playlist, or they reach me through messages from TikToks. I have found so much understanding from my own spiritual path through so many reading videos or people telling their own experiences on TikTok, and me listening, and then my guides helping me follow the theme of the message further in my own meditations and tying it to my life and weaving the threads for myself. And that's another callback to what I'm hoping to do in this podcast, is help you grab a thread from my story that ties to something in your life so you can follow your own path of what your own story is related to that, so you can learn further. But okay, so I finish all this recording and I go to TikTok to decompress. One of the first few videos that comes up is this beautiful heart healing light language video, and it closes the whole spiral of where the heart chakra Native American style flute sound was on around the same day that I submitted messages from Spirit. And now I finished recording all these channeled messages I wanted to include in this, or storytelling kind of meditation thoughts that I've wanted to include in this episode. I finished recording all that stuff, and then I go on TikTok and I find another heart healing video, like to close the loop. The heart sound opened the loop for me, and this heart healing video is closing the loop for this whole process, for this whole entering the portal episode. And I don't remember the creator name, but I did give them a follow, and I'll go back and find that, and I'll come back and tell you in just a minute. I just felt my ears pop and like the channel close a little bit. It was like the portal closing a little bit so that I can come down and get ready for bed. Like the disconnect from Spirit. The creator with that heart chakra light language that I just found as I was finishing recording all my messages and stories for this episode is called Angelically Aligned. So please go follow her. That heart chakra music, light language was so beautiful. Go follow Cody the Sound Healer. His heart chakra music was so beautiful in the beginning of this whole story for me in 2022. And yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. I hope you have some threads to follow, and if you're listening in a place where you can comment, please leave me a comment. If not, find my TikTok or find my YouTube or something and leave me a comment in the YouTube podcast episode. Let me know if anything reached out to you from this episode, or let me know if you have any questions or anything else you'd like me to talk about further. I do have more episodes planned coming up related to the sound releases for the next few months that I talked about. The Rainy Day Meditations album in July, and the Emergence song in August. And I'll go more in detail about Catharsis, Awakening, and Emergence with that Emergence episode. And September, I have a very special thing planned for the September episode. If I can get myself caught up on work by that time. And then October, I'm not sure about the October episode, but it will probably be related to the October album. But that's so far in the future that I'm not going to give too much on that. But these next few things through Emergence, it feels like it's closing a big loop for me. But I'll talk about that again another time when that episode comes. So for now, I'm stepping back out of the portal. But anytime you want to enter this portal again, you can come back and listen again. There's so much here. It may take a few listens to get different pieces or different messages or different find different connections to things for you, and that's okay. It takes me a few times sometimes to kind of put things together, and it's okay. That helps you look at a deeper level of something each time you come back to it. And until the portal opens again, have a blessed day. Until we go dancing through the rain in July, the portal will remain open here anytime you wish to come back. And I just hope that this has helped you in some way. And if it has, please let me know. And please follow me, follow my music. I have several releases out there, and I'll talk about more of them in the future. And that's how you can support me and let me know that something has reached you in these episodes. If you go and follow my YouTube or my TikTok or my music, or listen on Spotify or Apple or YouTube or wherever. And I really appreciate it. I appreciate you just pressing play and my sounds getting heard somewhere on anything. I appreciate you pressing play and taking the time to just think for a minute or just listen for a minute.
The spirits may use this sound to send you a message.